Hey guys, welcome back to Bits of an Artist's Life. This is Sandy here. Today I have a video for you that is all about my top tips for staying loose. This is one of the things that's been consistent through my teaching and art life is a pursuit of loose painting and also helping and teaching others and painting loose. I feel like a lot of people want that and don't know how to do it, and I want to share everything that I can think of today in this video. There's so much work and process up here that I don't think people realize that it's so much about the way that you're talking to yourself and the approach and the process that you bring to your art when you sit down to paint. I'm going to be breaking this video up into 3 sections because it really does come down to 2 areas that need to come together, and one area is more important than the other, and that is actually, I'm going to break it into these parts of like the up here, the brain, the processing, the approach that you bring, and then secondly the physical, there's just some practical things. And I wonder if as you hear that, you're like, oh, get to the practical first. The practical things are actually not nearly as important as what goes on up here. The mental part, the brain, and the way you think about a lot of things. And that's what I want to share first with you because it is the most important. And then thirdly, I want to share with you resources and how to use those resources and sources of inspiration. Okay, so let's just jump into it. Let's talk about the talk that goes on up here. I realized early on that I was coming to my painting like this, or I would leave it like this. I wasn't breathing, I was holding my breath, I was tense in my body, and I started realizing that's like just not fun for me. Why am I being like this? I think where I want to start is first talking about what is your top priority. Over the years, I've assessed this, the way I'm thinking about my painting, the way that I'm thinking before I even sit down or as I'm sitting down to paint. And one of the things I realized is that I was having a lot of self-talk and feeling this kind of, oh, I really need this painting to turn out. And why? What's the assessment of that? What's the root of that? The root of that is that it felt like everything about me relies on this painting turning out good. People need to be able to look at this painting and it says she's amazing. She's an amazing artist. She's an amazing person. I mean, that's a little exaggerative. The reality is that it takes a lot of bad art to make the good art. Like, it just does for everybody. And so when we have that as our like end all be all, and that even that our paintings are end all be all, like my art does not say everything about me. There's much more about my life than my art. And it's just a part of me. And I don't need it to stand alone or to be my everything. So I started realizing like that's feeding my when I come to paint. And I started realizing I want to enjoy the process of creating. I want that to be my top priority. I want to enjoy every part of it. A lot of my choices about what I use and the way that I paint is filtered through that top priority of I want to enjoy the process. Do you know there's some art you look at and you're like, that artist had fun painting that. And especially with loose painting, I want there to be a joy about my art, even in the brush marks. I want that to filter through this process of thinking about how I am enjoying this. And also what happens when that's my top priority is the fact I can come with the fact that like, hey, nothing is wasted here because all this bad artwork kind of has to go on. All the bad goes into the good. The good paintings encompass all that practice, all the hours spent. And when you know that, you can come a little freer to the canvas or to the paper and be like, okay, like nothing's wasted. So I can just play. I can be freed up and then just enjoy this. And if you can't make a lot of bad paintings because you're so tied up and like this kind of feeling inside, you won't make a lot of paintings, which means you're not gonna make as many good paintings. Basically, I mean, maybe other people have said like you need to practice a lot. Well, but it's the right kind of practice. It's the not aiming for that particular piece to be the masterpiece, right? It's just to know that I feel like that would be a waste of time doing all these paintings where my end goal was just either to make money or to make amazing work or to say everything about me. No, that's a waste to me. But if at the end of the day, I've painted and it is a bad painting, and this is a constant like process for me, right? So I can have spent all day, used a lot of paint and a lot of paper or whatever, right? And at the end of the day, it's like, my first thought sometimes can be like, wow, that was a waste. It was a waste of time, a waste of money, all of that, right? But because I know that it takes a lot of that to make good art, then I can go, okay, that was not a waste. Nothing about that was a waste. And one, maybe it's just a piece of paper, right? It's like, okay, who cares? But maybe it was something bigger. Okay, all right, on to the next one. Because I know that that's part of the process. And I think because the age that we live in and all we do is see good stuff out there, we don't realize all the bad work that has gone into that good piece. And so I want you to know that it does take a lot of the bad. And so if it takes a lot of bad, I want to enjoy making the bad. You know what I mean? Because oftentimes the bad isn't as bad as what you think. We'll get to that in a little bit. So I really just, at the end of the day, don't want the root of the way I'm thinking being all about what people think about me. Because that's kind of what it is when it's like, when inside all we're like, oh, I need this to be so good. When I started changing that mentality and realizing like, I above all want to enjoy this, things really started changing for me. Another thing is, if you are striving to do loose painting, you have got to start loose if you want to finish loose. Okay, let me say that a different way. If you do not start loose, you will never get loose. It begins at the beginning. There's something that happens even in your mindset of starting that painting or drawing with this mentality of, I'm here to play and I'm going to enjoy this. And it may start off like when you first start this, it may be like, doggone it, I'm going to enjoy this if it kills me. Because of all the practice I've had over the years, I can easily start loose. Where I, over my journey, find myself a lot of times now is when the painting it's going good. I've started loose, I'm going loose, everything. It's like, and when I realize this is heading towards a good painting, that's when every part of me is like, we gotta keep it, we gotta save it. I have to have self-talk back where I say, no, Sandy, look at the way you're holding the brush now. You're all up on that thing and you're tense and I'm like getting snot on the easel because I'm so close. And I have to go, okay, this is a sure way to ruin this painting, Sandy. My body follows what my mind is saying. Oh no, don't lose it. Oh, like, I don't know what your self-talk is, but mine sounds something like that. Like, oh no, here it goes. Keep this, save it. Oh, because this is it. This is the masterpiece. This is gonna say everything about you. Like, those are the root things, right? And I have to go, no, 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 no. That is the best way to kill a painting, Sandy. Step back, do all the things, the physical things that you know to do, and know that you just have to trust the process. That's my next thing. You've got to trust the process, because oftentimes when you start off loose, it can not look good. One, because you're so zero in on it, and you've heard me say this many times on this channel. Trust the process. Just try it. Just do it. Stay loose through the entire thing and just go, no, I want to finish this whole stinking thing like this, because it often doesn't look good as you're doing it. Everything in your brain is telling you, oh no, you're gonna mess it up. And you have to kind of fight that. Oftentimes it's once you're done, you're able to step back that you go, that looks so good. You know, you're painting a building and the roof's wonky and this and everything tells you that's not how our house is supposed to look. Oh, this is not, oh no, that person's ear is like too big. Oh, that's not how a person's supposed to look. And even sometimes when you first finish that painting, it still doesn't look good because you're too zoomed in, but maybe the next day when you come back in, you're like, that looks so good. That looks so fun. Yes. Okay, I'm so glad I trusted that process. I mean, and sometimes it's not till the next like day, week, or year that you come back. I look at some of my old stuff where I trusted the process and did loose stuff when I'm flipping through like my sketchbooks, and I'm like, this whole sketchbook is filled with tight, ooh, I want to prove myself, ooh, I need to do a good drawing. And then those few times where there was just looseness, I'm like, that says something. That has so much more life and energy and personality than all that like perfectly drawn stuff. I've got a friend right now who has really made that leap. She's kind of a new artist. We've been talking a lot about loose stuff, and she's just made leaps and bounds. I've just been so proud of her, and her paintings have just life, and she's enjoying it. Man, she's like so prolific now. And no wonder, I mean, when you're all like bound up and you get up from painting and you're like, I need to go to the masseuse because I'm so stinking like stressed. No wonder you don't paint a lot. No wonder you're not prolific. Who wants to just leave, you know, all like contorted and needing a massage and Advil? I think that you're more prolific when you enjoy it. But what's been interesting is she'll send me pictures, or we'll Marco Polo and she'll show me something that she's horse laughing over. And I'm like, Mary, that's like my favorite painting of yours so far. Why do you not like that? In fact, just before I got on here, I was asking her about some of the things that have stood out to her as we've been talking through this over the months. And she popped up another painting that she was like, oh, I did this and I didn't like it. And I was like, oh my gosh, please send me a picture of that, because that painting is amazing. She's like, I don't know why I can't see it. I think what happens is you get zoomed in on things. It is hard to step back and see it as a whole. You got to take a little break from it. We were Marco Poloing, and she was looking at the painting of this one bird that she showed me to laugh at, and I loved it. And it's like, she's like, I mean, I see it now. I mean, it still looks like a funny looking bird, but I see it. So there is very much a trust the process. I preach that back to myself all the time. Trust the process, Sandy. And I have red flags that go off, you know, like the alarm, like, and it's usually in the way that my body is, and you feel the hopes. Can you just trust me on the fact that that kills a painting more than anything? I think it also just steals joy for an artist. I just don't want to paint like that. And I'm not going to paint like that. And I've been practicing for years now, not painting like that. And I do still have to like get the axe out and chop that voice down. You know what I mean? The Sandy that comes, I'm like, no. You're gonna kill my painting here. You're gonna kill my joy. You're gonna kill my enjoyment of the just process of creating. It is such a gift, and we squelch the living daylights out of it with these desires of being a great whatever. I'm just not gonna do it. Now, do I want people to enjoy my paintings? Do I want to create good paintings? Yes, what I'm trying to tell you is the key is to enjoy the process. Even if you're more of a detailed artist, I think there's a lot of this that you can still bring to that. Because I think all the like tightness in your body and the comes from the inner talk of, this needs to be amazing. I remember years ago when my niece was little and she would come over and paint. Well, she still comes over to paint, but when she was little, we were both painting. She was over there and I was over here painting, and I heard her go with just such despair, oh no, Aunt Sandy, I messed my painting up. And I'm like, what's wrong, Hannah? And she's like, oh, I ruined my painting. And I don't remember if it was like the paint dripped or she made a mark she didn't mean to, but I went over and looked at it and I was like, that's no big deal. Like that did not ruin your painting. Aunt Sandy makes mistakes like that all the time. People aren't gonna notice that. You just keep on painting. And so then we went around the room and I was showing her all the places where I'd made mistakes. I'm pointing out all these like, here, look, I made a mistake here. And then she started going around to my paintings and she's like, oh, is this a mistake, Aunt Sandy? And I was like, no, that wasn't a mistake right there. But what about this? Is this a mistake? Well, no, that wasn't a mistake either. We got a good laugh, or I got a good laugh out of that. Just the other day, I did a sketch in my sketchbook and I did this bird really big. I don't know what happened. I really didn't mean for it to get that big, but he got ginormo and he wasn't good either. And I was like, kind of felt that inward defeat of like, well, I've ruined this page. Like here was some of my talk. Well, I've ruined that page. Great. You know, and then even some of the self-talk of like, I'm not a very good artist. All of that stuff comes in. I have to just go, no. You're not gonna say those things to me. I'm not gonna listen. I'm gonna go on mission rescue. And I was like, what can I do? And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna just fill the dickens out of this page. I'm gonna just crowd it. I'm gonna just do birds. I've already kind of like messed it up. I am a free bird now. But I just thought, well, I've already messed it up. Like I'm not loving it. And so now I'm just free. Like just, you don't have to be, you know, worried at all about things now, just play. And so that's what I did. And the page turned out so fun. Now I want to give you some practical tips. Like let's move on to kind of the practical and the body part of things. One of the best tips, and I've already kind of alluded to this, is the way that you hold your brush or your pencil. You want to hold your brush higher up. When you're like this, one, you can't even like use your body really, but there is just something that makes you want to lean in, have full control. I am always after tools that make me lose, wow, we got a bunch of big birds flying around out there, sorry. Things that will help me lose control, not have full control, because everything in my body is saying, get control, have control. And I'm like, no. So that's like just a constant battle and fight. So holding your brush though, that's a big one. Using a bigger brush than what you think you need or should, just go big. I also love when my brushes are like all splayed out. I mean, this is you know, a pretty tame one. I'm like, anything that's gonna leave marks and just make me not have the control that my inward self is desiring. Hold the marker or pen like that. Even when I'm writing, I'm like pushing, I'm trying not to go like this, you know, like this, the way I would write if I'm writing my sketchbook. I'm finding that I love when I write like that. When I'm first doing it, it's like, oh no, that letter's getting away from me. It just, you know, I just have to trust it. You're gonna like this so much better when you're done if you'll just do this. Instead of doing a line, you know, mark like this, I'm like pushing it. So I'm just always thinking about that, like, oh no, Sandy, don't draw like that. That's not gonna turn out good. And the shakier and the messier, the better. I think one of the things too is the way I'm holding things and standing somehow reaches back and sends messages to my brain of like, this is what we're doing. Also find standing back. I'm gonna take the different ways you may be standing. So if you're painting on an easel, standing back from the easel. So sometimes when I do classes or workshops, or even I do this for myself, I did this for a long time with myself. I put a piece of tape on the floor and didn't allow myself to step over that. And it's where I would step, you know, hold back. And let me just tell you this too, this feels really at first really out of control. And then if you're standing back and you're doing this, you feel like you have zero control. Just enjoy that, because you actually, your muscles get better and your hand-eye coordination or whatever, it ends up not being as loose anymore. You do get more control, which is kind of a bummer. Yeah, so just realize if it feels really like hard or weird, or just know that the more practice it does get easier and less out of control. If you are painting gouache or drawing or watercolor or whatever and you sit, try standing up. Stand up, because one, you can get into it more, and also try standing back from it. If you're sitting, you can also scoot your sketchbook or your pad of paper, whatever, further from you on the desk. Maybe even prop it up a little and far away from you, so you have that kind of less control. I think putting the tape down on the floor is really helpful. In fact, I've had this idea before. I think it would be great if, because you know, when you're really like into the painting, you're not notice where you are. When I have a workshop or I'm teaching a class, like I'm able to be like, okay, you're a little like close up, scoot, 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 look where your tape is. But I kind of wish there was like a electrical shocker thing. You know, it'd be like one of those fences, like a little wire, and you get the shock. I mean, not shock so much that it hurts, but like, oh yeah, I need to scoot back. I think that would be good. Or like one of those mats for like that you put on the couch for like your cat or dog to not jump up. You could put that on the floor and then like get a shock. I'm just kidding. That's a little extreme, but I have thought that would be a good idea. Okay, another thing is to look at your work through a mirror. So this new style of painting that I'm in right now, I paint almost the entire painting looking in the mirror. I mean, it's like I can't see things. You're gonna have to just trust me on this. My friend that I was talking about earlier, she started using a mirror and she was like, it is so weird how you just see things that you don't see when you're looking at it. It is a weird phenomenon. For a long time, when I started painting birds, I could tell something was wrong with them. I was like, is the eye placement what? Anyways, when I started looking in the mirror, I was like, I have got some angry birds. Everybody looks mad. And I could tell it was something I was doing with the beak and then with the eye. And then now I'll still check myself and I'm like, he's not angry. He's a happy little bird. But you just are able to tell compositional things. I can't really explain it, but it shows you a lot of things. Another way to do it is turn the drawing or painting upside down, just stepping away from it, go have a break, the next day coming back, or even like months or years later pulling something out and seeing it with fresh eyes will help. But the mirror really speeds things up, so I highly recommend that. The other thing that I find very helpful is painting or sketching or drawing from a painting. So it can look a couple of different ways. One of the ways is this. Let's say you set up a still life, or you're there in front of a building that you're drawing, or the scene or whatever. I do think there's a real important place for observation, for observational drawing, really observing with your eyes adjust. So doing that, what I like to do, I did this recently, so I'll have some examples here for you. Our church is joining with another church and it's a really old building. And so we went over there to walk the neighborhood, and I just took some markers with me. I don't even have a very good set of markers, like with many colors. And I had just a small amount of time. Grady was with me. I didn't want him waiting for forever. And I needed to just wanted to capture it, right? And so it was like frantically, I mean, it is just all over the place. and I didn't, again, have very many colors. But then I'm removed from the subject, and when I got home, I got out my paints and painted from that. What I used as my reference was just that sketch and the colors that were there. So what I've been doing a lot of, like maybe I'll set up a still life and I paint or draw or sketch, whatever, from that still life, because I do love observing and drawing from that. And I still try to be loose, and then step away from the subject, put the still life up, go home, whatever it is, and then do paintings just from your observational sketches or paintings. And here's the deal, just know you can do it again. If you mess up, just start again. Like, that's what's wonderful doing. So I'll do something, I'm like, this didn't turn out great, but I do like all of this. Instead of trying to fix this, I mean, sometimes I will work on this, but if it's like, I think that's just, it's fine, I just need to leave it, or I feel like I'm at a place where I'm gonna like get too tight, I just leave it. And then I'll do another one the next day and keep the things that I like and change the things that I didn't. And so then it kind of creates not only a body of work, but I'm getting all this practice. And each time I usually get looser and looser. It's a great way to work. The other thing that I would suggest in that way is going back to your old sketchbooks or your old paintings. Find some that you're like, there's something there, and do them again. Paint or draw from those paintings or drawing, and allow yourself freedom to know, like, I can do as many of these as I want. I can just crank them out. Do them fast. Maybe set a timer, set a time limit. Like, let's say you're at a point where you're like, I don't know if I should make that orange or red or big or small. Pick one, do it, and just know that you can, if it doesn't work, do another one. It gives you something to do, right? Because sometimes we have issues with, like, what do I paint? Another thing, one of the things that I love about some of the sets that I have, like my oil pastels, my wax pastels, my colored pencils, and my markers, is I don't have a huge range. So one of the things I love about that, though, let's say I'm painting a face or a figure. I really don't want to use the colors that are actually there in real life. I want some variety. So I'll just use the value as my guideline. So let's say we're doing me, right? So for the flesh color, I'll put all kinds of colors in there, but I keep it all somewhat in the same value, the lightness or darkness. So I'll use some of my lighter colors, and I could just, only have a handful of my wax pastels to choose from, but I move those around. Maybe for the hair color, I just pick different things. I try to choose colors that hair wouldn't actually be, and I get some variety. In fact, the way I stumbled on this, I had a very small wax pastel set. In fact, I stole it from my niece's set that was here at my house for a trip. It had like 10 colors or something, maybe 12. And that's all I had for the trip. I'd be like, I really need a black for this roof of this house in Maine. And it's like, well, I don't have a black, but I have a dark purple. All right, I'll use that. And then when I came home, had all these fun colors, and they were cohesive. They worked because I was just using the same colors all over and moving them around. And then I did paintings inspired with those same fun colors. I didn't go back to the black roof. And I was like, there's something to this. Like, this is really good. So I do that a lot, especially on trips. It's helpful because it's a smaller set, but then I'm also limited with my colors, and so I have to play a little more. So that's another tip. Also, just the using colors that aren't really there. So just because you've got a brown bowl on your still life setup, if you're like, I really feel like this needs a pop of pink, well, make the bowl pink. So there's just that self-talk of freedom, like, I'm not stuck with what's here. Another thing in this category of the physical is breathe. If you realize that you're holding your breath, that is not going to help you paint or draw loosely. Sometimes I have to step back and be like, oh, do some, exercises. That's a sure sign. Like, that's one of those red flags. If I'm like, I need that. And I think there's self-talk that goes with that. I'm like, I need this mark right here. It's a tiny mark, and I need that little reflection in the eye to be good. Man, just blop it in there. You're gonna get far more interesting edges if you'll do that. Okay guys, I needed to jump back on here. Let me grab my coffee. Okay, I wanted to jump back on here because I was looking over my notes and realized I had forgotten a section that I really wanted to put on here. So another thing in like the practical section, I mentioned using tools that would keep you loose. Well, there's also all kinds of tools for like the way that you can actually just draw or paint. And I'm talking about putting these in like using them for a real painting. I forget this all the time. I'm always like, oh, why didn't I do this double-handed when I was sketching it out before I painted? Okay, let me go through my list of them. I'm also going to put a list of exercises and prompts here for you guys. So basically, you would pick one of the subjects from one of the subject list and then pick one of the ways to do it and combine those. So let me go through the list because a couple of them you may not know what they are just from what it says on the list. Let me get my hand-to-day notes. Okay, so I've got things like go grab something from the bathroom, the pantry, blah, blah, blah. Some of these things you may think, I want to do a real painting that can sell. Listen guys, if you're only creating work that you think will sell and you're not drawing and painting for yourself and drawing and painting just to practice and just to enjoy the process of creating, you're not going to have as much to sell and you're not going to have as good of stuff to sell. You've got to feed that creativity. So continuous line, can we act like this is a pencil and this is the paper? So a continuous line is going to be you never pick it up. It's like even if you're writing notes, don't lift it up and then just go to the next thing, keeping your pencil or your pen or your marker always on the page, never lifting it. Opposite hand, that's kind of self-explanatory. Whatever hand you use to write with, normally use the other one. Trust the process. Just do it. I don't know why I don't do it more. I'm just in such a rhythm, but man, those kinds of things can really give life and interesting lines to a drawing or painting. Both hands, this is another one I love. Put a pen here and a pen here and draw. Mel Chadwick and I did that in our series. Y'all should check that video out. Blind contour is gonna be that you look at the subject and you draw and you don't look down at your page. So it's like you're blind, but you're looking at your subject. All right, I think the rest are self-explanatory. So I'll put that list here and you can always leave me a question if you have a question about some of them. Section number 3. The last section I want to talk to you about, I want to share some resources and how to use those resources and some sources of inspiration. I first want to tell you how I got inspired years ago when I first started painting, where like my first light bulb came off or came on. First started painting in watercolor. And there was an artist that I came across. I loved his work and it was because it was loose. So Charles REID, if you're a watercolor artist, maybe you know Charles REID. And I got to take 1 or 2 workshops from him while he was still living. But I got this book of his that I love and it's paintings from his sketchbooks. Now there are some gorgeous paintings in here and sketches, but you get to see like just his mark making, just the way he just kind of chunks stuff in, and it's like, how did that make a figure? And I started realizing like your brain fills in a lot of information. You really can make very simple marks and your brain will tell you that's a tree or that's actually a person. But there was a couple paintings in here that really got me. One, because I was like, that is so weird. Like this one painting here, it's like this really good painting, you're going along, and then this weird head down in the corner. It's not even good like perspective. Shouldn't be that small. It's this weird red triangle nose, almost like a jack-o'-lantern. But I couldn't stop looking at that little face. I remember thinking, and you put that in your book, like you published it. Not only did you do it, but you published it. I just was thinking, wow, okay. And there's something about his paintings too that you're like, this guy's having fun. Okay, but then there was this one painting in here that like did it for me. This painting stayed with me. I mean, it still stays with me. But it was another one of those that I was like, you put that in this, you picked that out and published this. So it's a sketch that he was doing on set. There was a film crew there filming him for a video he was doing. So he's painting this building, and then you get over here and he starts painting the crew. But I'm telling you, this one guy, not only does he have ginormo red, huge ears, but he looks like he's in his underwear. He looks like he is in his underwear. But I can't stop looking at him, not because he's in his underwear, but there's just, these figures are so much more interesting to look at than if they were all perfect. And look at the feet. They're these weird blobs. Another thing he does is, look, there are watermarks here and they're like pink and red. I mean, he uses color in here in ways that the objects aren't the color. Do you know what I'm trying to say? That roof, look, he's made it yellow. because the sunlight is hitting it. And so he wants it to, and it reads that way, the sun. That started my journey of like, okay, I want to paint like that. I want to have fun when I'm painting. So I highly recommend this book, whether you're a watercolor artist or not. The second thing, Peggy KROLL Roberts was also a huge inspiration to me. She also has a little book out of some of her paintings. Loose painting, and is someone who has fun putting the paint down. But what I want you to notice is look how the bowl isn't perfect. It's wonky and there's just wonky edges. She trusts the process, and in the end, it's amazing. I mean, look at, But let me show you one painting that stood out for me, kind of like the Charles Reid. So I think one of the things that stuns me about this is that it's somebody that is dear to her. So to be able to paint this way with a subject that your heart is tied to is very hard. Can you just trust me on that? It's very hard. Look how she's using colors in the skin tones. And one of them, I mean, he downright looks like a robot or part monster, I don't know. But it is such an interesting painting to just look at. It keeps my eyes locked on it. Look at how one ear is bigger than the other. Look at those eyes. Look at the colors. And I guarantee you, if you saw him in real life, you would see the resemblance. There's something weird about loose painting that happens. I mean, it's just inspiration for miles. Peggy also has a ton of videos out that are so reasonably priced. She's just an amazing teacher and artist and huge inspiration to me over the years. Emily Powell is also another one I have found recently. She's just like this daily source of inspiration for me. She is somebody else who you can tell, like she'll have little videos and stuff, you can tell she has fun, like she's having fun making those marks. She gets the concept that there's going to be a ton of bad art and she doesn't even care. She's just doing it. Man, that fires me up. It fires me up. And those are the people that succeed. Those are the people that keep, and not even just succeed, but keep painting and are enjoying the process. You can tell Emily enjoys it, like has to have it. And she's not gonna let some of that stuff, you know, get in the way. She's just, right? So I recommend her too. I'll put all the links like below. The last thing I wanted to mention are resources. Let's just take the subject of birds, for instance. I got this at a used bookstore for like $1 or 50 cents or something, right? When I'm gonna use something like a book or a resource of birds, because I don't have a bird just sitting there out there being still for me so I can draw it, so I'm gonna use resource books like this. I always go for books that are already illustrated. Now, why I find that important is because it's already one step away from the subject. There's something about being in front of something that just draws in and screams for tightness. So for me, you know, this illustrator has already taken that away. All the details aren't there. Even though this is a pretty detailed illustration, I'm just able to then instill all my tools. The other thing is when you're sketching or painting, like just get in there and do it. Don't worry about the mark that's way over here. And this is another trust the process thing. Leave those marks. Like I just get in there and make a bunch of marks. And then when I go back in to hone it in more, then I can decide which of those marks, you know, I've got 10 marks for the beak because I'm going like this, right? And I just leave those. Charles Reid does that a lot. He was probably the first person to teach me that. Every one of these drawings, you can see his pencil marks. So this is a pool painting, and look, he drew this person in, but for whatever reason, didn't paint them. He just left it. But even like mistake marks, he just leaves. And it really adds to the finished drawing and painting. There's one, he like took notes of something. I don't even know what it is. So here's this gorgeous painting, landscape painting. And then look, what's this up in the corner? It's like grocery, I don't know, it's weird, but it adds to it. But this is like my heart and soul. This is all the kind of behind the scenes and the inward workings of how I paint, what motivates me, and I think why I find a lot of joy in painting and why I am prolific. I am most prolific when I am enjoying it and incorporating these truths and practices into my own life. I feel like through my videos over the couple years that I've been doing these, I've been sharing these things, but it dawned on me recently after sharing with another artist who was wanting to become loose, and we had a video call, that hearing it all together was really helpful for her. She was taking notes, and I just thought, okay, maybe I need to share this with my people. So I thought, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get on it, I'm gonna sit down and film this video because I wanted it all to be in one place for you guys. So let me know if there was anything particular that was helpful in this. Leave it below. I really hope this video has been helpful and useful. I hope that you'll share it with some others. If it has been, that you give it a like and subscribe and all the things. That is it for this video, and I will see you back here real soon. Bye guys.